So this is Baruch, and I'm back here for the second part of the shir on Sifra D'tzniuta. And once again, it's a short shir, and but it can contain some of the kernels of ideas which are extremely important to understand. The last thing that I said, which I always like to say this, is that if wherever you're standing or sitting, just understand that you're on a giant ball that is rolling, that is rotating at a rate of 1,000 miles an hour. And if you say, well, I didn't notice that, you don't. Well, of course you don't. Nobody notices that. We're all running around thinking that this is really, whatever we're doing is the most important thing in the world. But it turns out that underneath us is a process that is going on, and we try to understand that process. This world is called the world of wheels. So just put that in your pipe and smoke on that one a little bit and see what it comes out. We're going to look over here in the Sifra D'tzniuta, and we're going to understand a little bit more about how the klipos are made. Now, there's things missing here that I don't know, and there's so much to it, and so much verbiage, and so many different words that are applied. I'm going to try to keep track of them. And for those of you who are zeicha to be mekubalim, which means that you're listening to the shir, okay, that's what it means. Mekubal is a person who is able to be open to accept this light. So I consider myself a mekubal because I'm trying to learn this. And that's all it is. It's just all a process that just continuously. And as you do, you see more of how the Ein Sof Baruch Hu is acting in our world. And that brings us closer. Here's the words. V'achakach mispashdim min acharayim elu bechinas mochin de klipos. Now, I could have said a lot more, says that behind this, these mochin de klipos are going to be behind all of this. Now, behind what? So he has said that the first Tikun is at the payas of Eric Anpin. Now, once again, Eric Anpin has a beard. The beard, it really contains the channels which limit the light of the Ein Sof Baruch Hu and makes it possible for us to be able to receive that light. So let's see what he says like this. The first Tikun actually has 3 Tikunim within it. It's the Tikun of Das. Das also has Chesadim and Gevuras within it. So it's like a triangle in a certain way, or it's 3 parts. But we want to say that this first Tikun, if you know Yudavning is Hashem Kale. Kale, Rachum, V'chanum, these are all the different names of light limitations. But the first one and the most important one is Kale. So that's where we're at right now. We're at the beard. Just imagine your own beard. We're at the beard of Eric Anpin. And we're right now, we have resurrect from the Birurim that we spoke about, all of the most choice of all Kedusha, and we planted it at the beard of Eric Anpin, right at the payas. Let's write what it says right now. Commotion is boyer b'Etz Chaim is explained over there. Behin is boyer b'Zohar v'Niso. So he goes through all of the different pirushim that have also talked about this. Inyan Tlas Almen B'Navke Mahachu Tikun D'Chagadimor. That in the first Tikun, which is Kale, there are 3 worlds that come out of it. Yes, he says worlds. He says worlds, right? So we're in a world called the Sia. So he says the Bria Anikra Kale, which is called by this name Kale. Once again, Kale Chanum B'Chanum, Eric Apayim, Rav Chesed Be'Met. All of those things are the Tikunim of the beard of Eric Anpin. V'sham Ba'arno in Yanim. So now we explain what's going on. That after the time came that these 3 worlds Nishavu came into being Sham Bahaku Tikuna. So now they came from the netherworlds, and they're pulled up by the power of the Muchastimah, which is something I haven't talked about, but we'll get to it. The Muchastimah of Eric Anpin, which is the brain of the Eric Anpin, is a sifter, and it sifts through all of the schmutz of reality and finds the most choice birurim like nuggets of diamonds and gold, and brings them to this place, which is the place of the first Tikun of Eric Anpin, and starts building olamos from there. So Od Yardu Lamata. So after they came to this place of the beard of Eric Anpin, but they go out further. Now, in the previous year, I said this year once before, I said that this is like where Rabbi Mimran talks about waves and vibrations, that they're actually waves and vibrations that are going outwards. It's its nature. It's the nature of it. It is. We understand that there are waves and vibrations of light and waves and vibrations of sound. There are other categories that have waves and vibrations. We don't even know what they are because we're so limited. But out from here at this place is that there's some kind of a pattern that is pushing outwards. And what we're trying to understand is that if I'm a man, and let's say I'm Eric Anpin. So Eric Anpin has different kinds of clothing. He has the clothing of Abba Be'ima, and on top of the clothing of Abba Be'ima, he has the clothing of Zer Anpin, and on top of that, he has the clothing of the Nook. So all of this clothing of Eric Anpin makes it possible for light to be limited down enough so that it can be generated out to us. Let's read on a little bit more. Od yardu l'mata b'chatzilus atzba b'gimel olamos. And then further from that, it went down lower. L'mata b'chatzilus into Atzilus itself b'gimel olamos. So Atzilus also has three parts. In other words, there's an Abiyah, which is Atzilus, Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya in every Olam. So then Olam Abriya has an Abiyah. And so Olam Yitzir has an Abiyah. Well, here we're in Olam Atzilus. Atzilus has a Biyah. Besides itself being Atzilus, is Atzilus. There's a Bria of Atzilus, there's Yitzir of Atzilus, and there's an Asiya Atzilus. Ki Olam Ha'elyon Yardo Bebida Atzilus, because the upper world went down into, it goes out, it vibrates outwards into the Bina of Atzilus. The Olam Habei, so now he's explaining these three worlds. He says the three worlds developed out of this one place, which is at the Tikun called Kale, of the beer of the Eric Anpin, the vibrations go outwards. So the first one is called the Bina of Atzilus. That's called Bria of Atzilus. The Olam Habei, Yared B'Tiferes Atzilus. It goes further outwards or further downwards into the Tiferes of Atzilus. The Olam Hagimel, Yared B'Malchus the Atzilus. It goes to the Malchus of Atzilus, which is going to be the Asiya of Atzilus. V'achar kach chazer misham lered od gimel b'chinas lamata. So then it goes back. Not only, now he says, let me read his words. I'm much better if I just read his words. He says, after that, they go backwards. They go left misham. What does it mean backwards? Not back to where they came from. They continue going outwards. Lered, to go, see, the word going down in Kabbalah and going outward could be the same thing. They're interchangeable. Look, you're in space. There's no up, down, there's no right, left. It's just we understand that it's progressing away from the Kedusha. So he says, so it wants to go further outwards. The vibrations continue. Into the actual olamos, creation of those olamos, or those places that are very far away, called Bria, Yitzir, and Asiya. Yehem neged Bina Tiferes and Malchus, because those worlds can also, you can see they can line up, there's another lineup of words, which is Bina Tiferes and Malchus, which also goes with Bria, Yitzira, and Asiya. So all of those go together. That's what he said. Now let's look at this. Zer Anpin has two wives. One's called Leah, one's called Rachel. Ki base Nashim Dezah, because his two wives are part of the panemius of the light. Now we're talking about to understand who they are in relationship to Zer Anpin, or to Yisroel. That's what the lines of Yisroel. So to understand them in terms of ourselves, so we can say, well, one is on the top part of the back and the other one's on the bottom part of the back. But of course, we're talking about light. So therefore, it's only our ability. That's how we have to look at everything. We have to look at everything from Rosh Toch Sof, from the head, a body, and what's at the end, and at the bottom. So then you have a top, and then you have a bottom, and then you have a right, and then you have a left, and then you have a front, and then you have a back. All of these things exist in the spiritual world, but not in the same way that the origins, the roots of all the things we see about ourselves, from the top to the bottom and the right to the left, and so on and so forth in our world. All of those things have roots here, and we're looking at them now. These are the roots. So, Amnam. When we're talking about the Acharayim, we're talking about the same thing. We're talking about something else. You're going, what's happening to Acharayim? Every part of it has a front and a back. The front really represents the pure light. That's the best part of the light. The back remains already just like yourself. You can see out the front. You don't see out the back. The back is protection So that's since you have that protection, what do you need protection from? What? There's a dinim there. That's why. So dinim shall ha'achor osim begimel olamos. So what he's saying is like this: he says if you started out with the vibration of the first tikun, it starts going. It has three parts to it, so it starts going into three places nearby. But as it starts moving out, it gets further and further away and further down away from the place of the original tikkun, which is part of the idea. It's the vibration of it continues. But a vibration is not the same thing as the kedusha itself. It's a close call. But as you keep going through the back, it becomes more and more thick, and as a result of that, the vibration lessens. So let's go on. Olam ha'elyon hu achre bina d'chitzilus is in the back of the bina b'tzilus. Olam ha'beis hu achre d'zada b'tzilus, and the second olam is going to be behind the zer anpin of b'tzilus. Olam ha'gimel hu achre malchus b'tzilus is going to be after the malchus of b'tzilus. Okay, so here we have, these are the developments of the worlds. They come behind these different aspects of Atzilus, but then they ultimately wind up in olamos of themselves. Mila olam arishon hotzi as zilpa shifchas Leah kihi achre Leah. And the back of Leah is her maidservant. So this is already a second generation of the light that was in Leah. So Ki Leah he bechinas bina, that Leah represents bina. V'olam habeis hotzi ma'achre za shel bechinas adas. So the second one in the back of Zer Anpin. So Zer Anpin, now we're moving down the body. Zer Anpin represents the body. Shel bechinas adas. There you see the incipients of the bodies in the neck, where all the das is located. The bechinas teferis shelo, and also the body itself, which is the teferis. Behind that, you see another, what would you say, another sub-olam, because the vibrations, once again, going through the backside are going to be full of dinim, and they're going to start changing and making things more physical as they go out. Anizka bezoar b'parshas achrei mos. V'olam hagimel hotzi ma'achrei rachel. So the third world comes out behind Rachel, Bilcha, Shifcha, Achrei Rachel. Rachel has a maidservant, which is called Bilcha. Bilcha is is the basis of the next world. Shifcha is her handmaid. So that we see like this, from these two universes, these two worlds, these two hidden worlds. Nispashet bechem mochem ala klipos. Mochem go then to the klipos. That's the bina. So look at your body. Your body, the bina, is the back of your brain, or it's the brain that is on the most outside part. So that's that part, and it switches into the medulla oblongata. It moves down that way. So he says, mina olam arishon shuhu zilpa shifchas Leah. So that's where Leah is, around the neck. Shuhu bechinas bina, which is bina. Leah is bina. That's the area of bina. Yatzid b'manu tzipar echad, a bird comes out. Now we have this word bird. We're trying to understand what this bird does. Shuhu moach echad shal hachokma shal hanukva de klipa, which is actually the brain power of the nukva de klipa. Don't ask me to explain what the nukva de klipa is actually like in terms of the nukva de klipa or the bina or the zacha de klipa. What's the difference between them? Maybe I could make a drush on that and try to think about that, about what is actually the nukva de klipa is the plonis. So this is the beginning of seduction comes here. So what they say here. So wait. He says that when you come to Zer Anpin and you look at the first wife of Zer Anpin, it's going to be Leah. In relationship to the body, that is, looking at ourselves as a Rosh Toch Sof, in relationship to the body, she's going to be in the neck area, the back of the neck going down to the chest. That's where Leah is located. Leah, so when you think of Kedusha, the greatest Kedusha is going to be in the Moach, it'll be in the center of the highest place. That's where the greatest Kedusha is. But so she's on the back of that. She's behind it and a little bit down below. So that's Leah. So Leah has in her back, attached to Leah. So he says, Let's start here. Aval mina olam arishon shuhu zilpa shifchas Leah. So Zilpa is her attached to her. So in other words, Leah is in the back. Under the back of Leah is going to be Zilpa. Now imagine the way that he's saying that the light works. The light flows from the vibrations that are the real kedusha, which is at the Tikun, through the back of the head of Zeranpin. It could be any parts, but let's just say we're talking about Zeranpin. And on the back of Zeranpin is going to be his first wife, which is Leah. And Leah, on the back of Leah, and we're going through these vibrations, are going through the Partsufim and out their backside where they pick up dinim, or another word of saying dinim is more physicality. They become more physical, more needy. And that neediness brings about with it dinim. So each time you go through the back, you get to the dinim. So now you went to the back of Leah. Shuhu b'bechida b'bina. Yotzeb b'menu tzipor echod. He said on the back of Zilpa, on the back of Leah is Zilpa, and on the back of Zilpa is this one bird. What's the bird do? It actually is able to create Shuhu muach rishon. This is the first muach. It's called the muach of Chachma al shalanuk v'deklipa. There is a female force from the side of evil. So he says, Ma'olam Bagimel, Shuhu Bilcha, Shifchas Rachel, and the second one, then you move down lower. Rachel corresponds to the body, the back of the body of Zeranpin. Yatziv B'menet Tzipor base. Then another bird comes out from the lower spot, which is the first you were at the neck. Now you're down at the body, so to speak, body of Kedusha. Base, Shuhu Muach base, which is called the Bina Denuk for the Klipa. Now, exactly what the implications of this, I don't know. I sort of really understand what happens when, as you're building, first you just built through the Kedusha itself. It goes through the Kedusha and the vibrations moving out and becoming weaker and weaker until they get to a place over here where you have these two birds. And then the birds are actually somehow, and we get to learn that, right? Somehow they're going to build the Zocher V'Noch, he said that the Chochmah Bina of the Moach of the female Klipa. Strong stuff. So we said that in that world, they come from his das. In other words, you're talking about the top of the body and the body itself. You have these two spies come out. And then after then, this Pashto Gam came Elo Hatlas Almim, and so then after you've gotten to this point, now, again, we already created, let me go back just a little bit. He said, Olam Abeshuhu Ba'ach Zer Anpin de Chatzil Kavar Be'arnu Shuhu Mechadas Meteferish Shalom Osim Shnaim and Nashim Meraglim. So the spies, two spies come out from the back of the Zer Anpin of Etzilus. These are male spies. I'm not sure exactly how to understand it, but at any rate, they come out. So he says that once again, they bring out these two Anashim Meraglim. So he says that the vibration continues. And apparently the vibration that is from the Kedusha, as it gets weaker and weaker and weaker and goes out, it becomes more and more physical. Eventually it creates in these three places, which are Rosh, Tov, and Sof, it creates in those three places new olamos, completely different, separated completely into, it's the exact opposite of what we normally think. They become more and more physical as the light gets weaker and weaker. That's the whole idea, I think, that we got to find that light down here. This is Baruch Fleischman here. I'm going to stop right there. Tikun, elevator, Kale.